Days go on and on, and they don't end.
There is something strangely unstable in the structure of our consciousness. The fact that each of us experiences ourselves as the center of our own reality. That we possess an inner voice, a private narrator through which our experience is filtered, inherently unique to us.
I don't believe that one should devote his life to morbid self-attention.
Subjectively, we are the protagonists of our own stories. Objectively, we may be nothing more than a passing detail in someone else's. And that contradiction is a difficult one to endure.
All my life needed was a sense of some place to go.
Taxi Driver is a movie that begins here, in this tension between the felt significance and the lived insignificance. It is a film about a man who experiences himself as central within his own consciousness, yet gradually becomes aware that to the world around him he is as ordinary and replaceable as everyone around him.
I believe that someone should become a person like other people.
This instability within the human condition lies at the heart of the philosophy of Fyodor Dostoevsky. In novels such as Notes from Underground, Crime and Punishment, and many others, the Russian novelist dissects the same tension that animates Taxi Driver. The division of the inner self under conditions such as loneliness, suffering, poverty. At the center of his work is a persistent conflict between reason and the irrational inner life, between moral law and wounded pride, between the desire to belong and the need to transcend. And in the story of Taxi Driver, when that division remains unresolved, it does not simply linger as a private discomfort. It begins to reshape perception itself, where humiliation hardens into moral clarity, resentment takes on the language of righteousness, and the world is no longer experienced as complex, but as corrupted. And in such a world, in such a mind, violence can begin to appear not as eruption, but as a necessity.
Someday a real rain will come and wash all this scum off the streets.
At the beginning of Notes from Underground, Dostoevsky opens with the declaration that to be too conscious is an illness, a real, thoroughgoing illness. The novel follows an unnamed former civil servant, simply called the Underground Man, who has withdrawn from society, living in resentment and compulsive self-examination. According to Dostoevsky, this so-called hyperconsciousness is not a gift of clarity, but the beginning of inner fragmentation, a moment when a person begins to observe his own motives while acting, to stand outside himself and examine his inner narrative as from a distance.
My life has taken another turn again.
To be too conscious is to recognize that while the central I at the forefront of our experience feels singular and irreplaceable to us, there is nothing structural distinguishing our inner life from that of others. It is a proposition that the very form of consciousness that convinces us of our uniqueness also exposes how interchangeable we actually might be.
One day indistinguishable from the next, a long, continuous chain.
For Dostoevsky, this realization produces a form of an inner division, where one part of the self accepts it, clinging to belonging, to moral law, to integration within a wider order. It seeks stability in structure, or as in Taxi Driver, a beauty within the mess.
She appeared like an angel out of this filthy mess. She is alone. They cannot touch her.
This divide is not catastrophic on its own. There is nothing inherently dangerous about recognizing the repetitive structure of our existence. Most of us live fulfilled lives in spite of this fact. The danger lies in how that recognition is lived, because at this stage the self remains contradictory, suspended between contempt and longing. Like Travis, a man who condemns his surroundings.
Thank God for the rain, which has helped wash away the garbage and the trash off the sidewalks.
While continuing to immerse himself in the very environment he claims to despise. He stands both within it and above it.
He's a prophet and a pusher, partly truth, partly fiction. Walking contradiction.
But this lucidity is not easily endured, because to fully accept our ordinariness would require surrendering the illusion of our exceptional individuality. And so another impulse emerges, not to belong, but to distinguish, to seek a proof that we are not, as Dostoevsky suggests, a mere piano key in a predetermined composition.
And suddenly, there is a change.
And for Travis, when this hyper-awareness is intensified by humiliation, isolation, and rejection, the pre-existing contradiction hardens into resentment.
I realize now how much she is just like the others, cold and distant. And many people are like that.
Because resentment, unlike contradiction, cannot tolerate being one among many. And so it searches for explanation. It searches for hierarchy. And in doing so, it begins to construct a narrative in which it no longer appears ordinary.
Loneliness has followed me my whole life, everywhere. Bars and cars, sidewalks, stores, everywhere. There's no escape. And God's a lonely man.
Loneliness in Taxi Driver is not portrayed merely as the absence of company. It is also a moral isolation, the experience of standing outside the shared framework that binds society together. In Crime and Punishment, the main character Raskolnikov, a former student living in extreme poverty, consumed by his own thoughts and convinced his life has stalled into insignificance, murders an elderly pawnbroker. To commit himself to a murder, he must first reduce her to abstraction, or as Raskolnikov categorizes her, a morally expendable louse. To justify the act, he transforms his alienation into theory. He divides humanity into two categories. The first category consists of ordinary people who must live in submission. The second category consists of those who have the gift or the talent to utter a new world. These people, if necessary, have the right to permit their conscience to step over certain obstacles.
I really want to. I got some bad ideas in my head.
If one belongs to the second category, then suffering becomes transitional, a step necessary to overcome, and transgression becomes permissible, even necessary.
Now I see it clearly. My whole life is pointed in one direction. I see that now.
If the extraordinary man may step over moral law, then stepping over it becomes proof of extraordinariness. The murder is then not merely the elimination of an obstacle. It becomes a test of identity, a demonstration that one can endure what others cannot, that one is selected, that one is special.
There never has been any choice for me.
Travis does not construct a formal doctrine as Raskolnikov does, but he does perform the same gestures emotionally, dividing the world into the corrupt and the righteous.
It's real clean, like my conscience.
And so the city is reframed as degraded, diseased, morally polluted. Because for Travis, once the environment is perceived as contamination, violent intervention begins to feel corrective rather than destructive.
The idea had been growing in my brain for some time. True force. All the king's men cannot put it back together again.
But the paradox is that the more fractured the self becomes, the more fiercely it insists on its superiority. And so the hierarchy separating ordinary from extraordinary is constructed to escape the humiliation of being indistinguishable. In both Crime and Punishment and in Taxi Driver, the crime is not committed to transform the world or to benefit the society. It is committed to force recognition, to compel the world to acknowledge a self that cannot bear being a part of the herd, to show everyone that
Here's a man who would not take it anymore. A man who stood up against the scum, the cunts, the dogs, the filth, the shit. Here is someone who stood up.
if there is something both Dostoevsky and Taxi Driver reveal, it is that our consciousness is far more unstable than we are comfortable admitting. We experience ourselves as coherent, rational, morally grounded beings. Yet beneath that surface lies division, pride, resentment, humiliation, and the persistent need to believe that we are more than our circumstances suggest. Raskolnikov, the underground man, and Travis Bickle are not mere anomalies. They are intensified expressions of tendencies that exist in quieter form within most of us. The impulse to elevate ourselves when wounded, the temptation to justify ourselves when diminished, and the desire not simply to live, but to be recognized. The question then is not whether crime is possible. It is whether our consciousness still contains the capacity for inner punishment. Dostoevsky believed that transgression fractures the self in a way that demands confrontation, and eventually, with great effort, acceptance. In Taxi Driver, that reckoning never fully arrives. There is a crime without punishment. Nothing is restored, nothing is learned, and the fracture remains. Quiet, unresolved, and capable of returning.